I'm not, I don't know who goes through the stronger emotional roller coaster, really, and physical, your character or the audience watches it. It was absolutely amazing.
Me.
Exactly. But I thought
Me doing it for 9 months.
I thought it was outstanding.
Thank
I know,
you.
The audience, everyone was sitting on the edges of their seats, almost like that. It was so quiet. It was absolutely unbelievable. And you walk outside, and then all these scenes, even this morning I woke up, and a lot of scenes where, you close your eyes and you go through some scenes, and they are astonishing.
That was the great thing about the screenplay. Initially is a very simple, storyline. It's a man that loses everything and has to find this, has this initial journey of revenge to confront the person that has stripped him of his entire life. And we knew that was a great sort of model for something much more poetic or existential. And we wanted to go into this journey, and I think Alejandro had it stuck in his mind. He couldn't really articulate, but he said the answers are going to be there when we're on location, when we start to live these people's lives. And that's why he wanted to shoot it in order as much as possible, because so much of what the narrative was dictated by us being there, having those experiences, having the interactions with the Native Americans. And the whole ending changed. The whole film sort of changed and took new forms, and was in a grand sort of experimentation that was very planned out in the beginning, but that was his hope. And what you were saying is there's a great amount of tension there, the whole screenplay, because you're really connected to a man that has to hold on to love and hold on to, after having everything be stripped from him, what does he fight for? What is the meaning of life for him? And those are the answers that we were trying to achieve by making this movie.
What was it like to work in such tough conditions?
Well, I think that, yes, it was a very tough landscape, but no one that was a part of the movie didn't know that that's what we were signing up for. And I think if anyone wasn't a part of the movie ultimately is because they didn't see eye to eye with what Alejandro wanted to put up on screen. There's always that kind of situation that happens in a movie, but it's certainly compounded when you immerse yourself in the elements like that. I think from all the actors' perspective, it was very tough, but we knew that we were signing on for something very experimental, very different. And the way this film was shot was completely unique. We rehearsed all day long. It was like a piece of theater every single day. We rehearsed from morning to night and orchestrated with Chivo, who's one of the best cinematographers of all time, exactly how they wanted the camera to move in coordination with the actors, the entire background. And then we had this 1 hour of magic light, and we scrambled to get it. So it was a very intense experience for all departments, all actors, but that was the beauty of it. We were all in it together, trying something completely unique, trying something different, and there was an enthusiasm and camaraderie to that. It doesn't always fit with everybody, but I think we all knew that we were trying to make a great piece of art. So there are other prices to pay for that.
What was the toughest scene to film for you, for example, physically and emotionally?
There's a lot of things that I do in this movie, whether it be sleeping in an animal carcass or falling off of cliffs or going down frozen roaring rapids or fighting with Tom Hardy or a bear, for example. I mean, you name it. It was 9 months of this. But to be honest, it was I remember there was a day where, I had to come out of a frozen river, and the bear fur, I had to walk with it up a hill. And when you have a bear fur on that is submerged in water, it weighs about 120 pounds, and then you're trying to climb up a hill and your body's sort of slowly freezing. I don't know how these men did it. I mean, I had to do it for 5 minutes and I was in absolute agony. But these men lived in these conditions. That's what when I watch this movie and I leave the theater, I'm like, oh my God, people actually lived like this. I mean, think about Siberia. How do people survive in these elements? The human resilience and its ability to adapt is incredibly profound and powerful. That's what has made us, you know, such a dominant species. But being from an urban environment, never having to endure those conditions was pretty eye-opening for me.
Is it the first time the director puts you into, you know, in conditions like that, real environment sort of conditions?
I think that we, you know, the whole film was in these conditions. That's what we knew we were signing up for. I mean, I knew I was going to sign up for something that was immersive like this. And unless there was no way he was going to shoot anything that wasn't this, it's called this perfect lighting and real atmosphere. Nothing was a sound stage, you know, it was all in the elements. And that was the biggest challenge in making this movie. That's why people had been talking about this movie for so many years, but the challenge of how to accomplish it was left up to Alejandro, and it was very challenging, but a beautiful experience.
Would you go through that again, if asked?
I don't know if I'd go through this one again.
Right.
Maybe something different, but this was. I'd love to work with him again. I'd love to do a film, you know, in the wilderness again. But this particular experience was a pretty memorable, profound, difficult one.
In a research said that that this movie is the most important in his life. A lot of critics say now that this movie will bring you an Oscar, and you know, everyone in Russia especially will be keeping our fingers crossed because you know, a lot of people love you over there, and we would love you to get an Oscar. Do you think that your role in this film is different from anything what you've done so far?
Certainly. Certainly, I think it's different than anything a lot of people have done. I think, you know, you have to harken back to a different era in cinema almost. We had a Q&A with Martin Scorsese, and this is a very unique type of movie. He was like, these are the types of movies that people made in the silent era of filmmaking when, you know, they didn't have, you know, a lot of the tricks that we now have in the movie making process. I mean, granted, there's small amounts of CGI in this movie, but everything that you kind of see is actors really doing these things really in the elements. And it's a very, it's going to be a very unique film, I think, for years to come. But I endorse films being made like this still. I think that it's very important. I think certainly as cinema is going more towards the small screen and television, and there's so much great television right now, we need films like this that aren't just CGI spectacle, you know, tentpole superhero films, but films where you embrace something very unique in the vision of an incredibly masterful, talented director. And that's what Alejandro is doing here. He's using cinema on a grand scale and being very transformative about it. I don't think there's been any film ever made like this. I mean, it harkens back to things like Tarkovsky. I mean, there's visions of that. There's visions of Sanjuro. You know, there's films that you could take pieces from, but this is its own unique experience with a very unique, talented director.
In one of your interviews, you were saying that this film, you know, films like this are, I'm quoting it, a dying breed. It's like the last of the Mohicans. So, you know, I can say why you're saying that now.
Well, simply because I think that, you know, in the industry, either films are becoming small independent films, but you know, the large budget films, studios only really want to finance things that they know have a guaranteed audience fit in, or, you know, some sort of character or recreation of another film that they feel will guarantee their investment. This is a huge risk on a massively artistic scale that you have to find, you know, financiers that are really willing to believe in the vision and believe that they're making a great piece of art. And we're not going to see many of these things. You know, I think theaters are going to be an interesting thing in the future. It's always a communal experience for an audience to feel like they're together, a part of something. But, you know, how much room there are for films like this that aren't sort of traditional commercial films, that are beautiful spectacles, but pieces of art, I don't know. I don't know what the future is going to be like.
Can you compare this movie in terms of the director's approach to anything what you've done before?
Well, it was a very unique approach. I think that certainly the theatrical element of us having to rehearse. We did many, many months of rehearsal before we even stepped on set. And the whole film was in order of, Hugh Glass's life from beginning to end. We tried to have this amazing through line, I think, because the script was very linear, very simple, but we had to find the poetry and the meaning in there. So ultimately, everything that we did in the film dictated the last outcome. And that's why Alejandro wanted to start with something that was very streamlined and straightforward, because he wanted to find the poetry and meaning while we were in the elements. And so it was many months beforehand rehearsing. Every day was like the entire crew working as a Swiss watch with all these different components in place, all the extras, the set pieces, the wardrobe, the makeup, all these different actors working in exact unison to accomplish a specific shot within a 1 hour time frame. So it was a huge amount of tension every single day.
You're the most famous and beloved American actor in Russia, that's for sure. And do you know anything about do you feel how much you're loved, living in America, how much you're loved by the Russian audience? Whether, for example, do you have any idea how many people from Russia log into your website, leave comments or, something like that? Do you monitor it at all?
I don't. I did hear stuff from my grandmother, whose maiden name is Smirnov. So I do have Russian blood. I mean, she'd always, she'd be in contact with some of her friends there and tell me about that. And it would make me feel great, but I've only been to St. Petersburg one time for 2 days, and that was for a Tiger Summit, so I haven't really spent much time there, and I look forward to doing it in the future. I think that it'd be an amazing experience.
I know that a lot of people, obviously, who are going to be watching this movie in Russia, they will be saying that, well, the reason this character, the reason Mr. DiCaprio is so tough because
of
he's
his
got
Russian
the
blood.
Russian genes, exactly.